guys, and welcome back to the kitchen for part 2 of how to build a 2-tier specialty birthday cake. So if you are just joining us, part 1 of this video, which has already been posted, was all about the baking process of the cakes and what we use to get our 2 layers. If you're just tuning in tonight, tonight is sort of all about filling, leveling, and crumb coating. Okay, so last night we took our 2 tiers, one which is 6-inch and the other which is 10-inch and still down in the freezer. We let them cool completely on the counter, and then I wrapped them very thoroughly in plastic wrap and popped them in the freezer. I forget where I heard about doing this in the first place, but it's something I've always done with my cakes, because I really do find that it does help to keep your it just makes it a lot easier when you go to carve your cakes and to trim, okay? So as you can see, they baked up really quite nice and level. We don't have a ton of trimming to do, but we do want to cut and carve the layer in 2 so that we can fill it. We also want to sort of straighten it out on the bottom, because I don't know if you can see or if you can pick it up on camera, maybe against my shirt you can see ever so slightly how it bows out at the bottom. We don't want that. So specialty equipment for tonight. Always good to have a good turntable that has a really good loose range of motion. You're going to need your cake round covered with foil, and so that it sticks, we're just going to put a blob of icing here under the cake board. We're going to put also a blob of icing on the cake board itself, and we're just going to plop our cake down. Okay, so in terms of other equipment, I've got a few different offset spatulas for frosting purposes. One here, a big one which I will not be using for this particular cake, but I'll probably use this one when it comes time to do the filling. I have a bench scraper for when I go to put my icing on. I'm going to want to use that to get a nice crisp edge. And then just some things to help maneuver the cake on the board. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start trimming, just trimming down the sides to get a nice level appearance. I mean, you can fix a certain amount of imperfection in the cake itself by just using icing, filling little gaps and so on and so forth, but you really do want to make sure you have the straightest sides that you can possibly have. Good. Okay, so that's basically, I think, going to do it. It's looking pretty straight and level. All of the stuff that you do now is going to help you ultimately get those super crisp lines and super smooth edges when you go to put your final coat of frosting on. Okay, crumbs disposed of. We are about ready to cut our layers. So you want to just kind of eyeball what your halfway point is, or where you want your layers to fall. And again, with your serrated knife and good pressure on top, because you're pretty frozen here, you're going to need to use good pressure. You just want to very slowly slice your way around the cake. Take your time. There we are. Perfect. Okay. Looks not bad. There's a little bit here that we will just trim off so that it's nice and level. And actually, I do have a level, which is a great thing. I might break that out when we get it stacked back up. just to see how we are looking. There we go. So, great recipe, nice, and that looks good. Very good. Now we're ready to fill. All right, so for our filling, Ashley, who is the mother of the birthday girl, who will be along eventually to help me, she's just running a little late tonight, had indicated that she had wanted a salted caramel flavoring for the filling on this because it's a basic yellow cake. I'm still looking at my layers, wondering if I've got them straight enough. In any event, what we're going to do, Wilton makes these, it's called Treatology Flavor System. They may have new flavors now, but this one comes with 8 different flavor concentrates in here. They're nice because they're kind of a gel, a loose gel, kind of like the consistency actually of hand sanitizers. So they really don't alter the consistency of your icing very much. So we're just going to add a little bit of that. And it's kind of a bit of a guessing game. I find these flavorings, some of them more intense than the others. Some of them take very, very little. And again, no real change to even the color of the icing. You know, even considering the fact that it is quite dark, it's the color of vanilla extract. I thought it would have made some difference, but not that it matters when it's going to just be filled anyways. Okay, so there's our filling. Never enough counter space. So now, there's a couple different ways you can do fillings. For the purposes of tonight, I am just going to plop it on and smooth it around. If you were doing something like a jam filling, you would want to first pipe a dam of buttercream around the edge just to keep it in. Actually, maybe I'll show you that anyways. We're going to be filling both cakes with the same filling. So I'll just use one of my icing bags here. These are very, very large icing bags, disposables that you can get at the bulk barn. Sometimes I find it helpful to sit it in a glass with the edge overturned. Other times you can just hold it like this with your hand, and then you can spoon your filling down into the middle. A little bit in there. And then we will give it a good shake. And we're going to cut the tip off. Once you get the icing in your bag and you get your tip cut off, you're going to squeeze it down until you can start to see icing coming out the tip. You want to get rid of any air in your bag. That's called burping your bag. You want to burp your icing bag, okay? And then if you were going to do, you know, jam or a simple syrup on here, we don't really need to do simple syrup. This has been in the freezer. It's going to be nice and moist. You would just simply start around one edge. You have to really kind of press down into the cake. There we go. And then you would put your other filling, whatever it might be, in the middle. I, however, am doing all buttercream. Really good buttercream, I might add. So. There we are. Don't worry if it's oozing over the edge. This is fine. They call this the crumb coat for a reason. You're going to have crumbs in it. It's going to look awful. But the key to this is it does seal those crumbs in and keeps them from getting into your final product. Okay? Any excess filling, back in your bowl. Okay. Take our other layer. We're going to position it on top. Give it a little press. There we go. Okay. Clean up around my edges here a little bit. Again, tons of crumbs in this. Don't worry about it. Now we're going to switch to our regular plain vanilla buttercream. Now the top tier on this cake is going to be plain white, so we don't have to worry. The only thing I will say about crumb coating, when you're crumb coating, so don't be too concerned about the cakes, the crumbs on your cake. Try not, though, to get them back into your icing bowl. I'm just going to kind of work it down over the tops and the sides. This coat doesn't have to be overly thick. It's more important that it's just covering the whole kit and caboodle. Right down to your icing board, or your cake board, rather. Okay, so like I was saying, we've done pretty much what we can do with our offset spatulas, and we just want to sort of pretty it up a little bit now, make sure it's perfectly as level as we can get it before we put it into the fridge to chill, to harden this outer coat up, and then we will hit it with our final coat of icing. Okay, so a few things we can do. I do have my level here, so we are going to check the level on it. Now this is a little trick I learned ages ago. Now unfortunately, these are Viva paper towels, which I am not aware that you can actually get up here. There's a textured side and then there's a very much less textured side. This is great for buttercream. It really doesn't stick. So you can kind of put your level on there. Okay, so it's a little bit off on the top. That's good. But the other thing you can do with it, if you have fondant smoothers, is you can lay thickness of this over the top, and you can work it nice and flat with your fondant smoothers. When you peel it off, you get a much crisper edge. So let's try the level on that now and see. Still a little bit off. What do we need here? A little bit on this side. Oh no, wait a minute. Perfect. Okay, great. Excellent. All right, so something else you can do to sort of pretty it up and make it really ready for your final coat is you can use a bench scraper. That's what this is here. And you just position it right where the cake meets the foil round that you have it sitting on. And you just very carefully work it around, keeping pressure gentle. Whoops. Gentle pressure on the cake. There we go. And that, as you can see, is going to give you a nice crisp edge. Now, any of my crumb coating icing that I've taken off the cake, I've just put in a separate bowl. That can be used on the next cake when we crumb coat it. Don't necessarily have to throw it away. There is still sort of a little bit of a lip on the top here. People approach it differently. Sometimes people put it in the fridge and chill it, and then when it's very cold, they use a knife to actually cut it off. Or you can take your offset spatula, heat it up in some very, very hot tap water until it gets really hot, dry it off, and then drag across. So I think we're going to try and go that route for tonight. Okay, so I let my tap water run. I don't know if you can see it steaming, but it's steaming here. It's really hot. I've got my offset spatula sitting in here, just soaking up some of that heat. You don't want to use it wet on your cake. You don't want to get your icing wet, but what you do want is the heat from the metal to sort of soften that edge and help you drag it across. So removing it and working quickly, dry it off. Back in the water, keep it hot. Off. This is sort of one of the cons, I guess, of chilling your cake in the freezer, is the crumb coat. It does make it a little harder, I find, because the cake is cold and it wants to solidify the butter and everything that's in that icing. So, I mean, you could, do your shaping of your cake, fill it, sit it there and let it come to room temperature. But it really is not that big a deal. You just have to kind of work with it here. All right, that is looking pretty respectable. Fairly clean edges. Excellent. So that is our 6-inch layer that has been crumb coated, and it's ready to go back in the fridge. And we'll let it sit for maybe an hour just to get really nice and firm. What I am going to do with my icing, so that it goes on the next layer a little bit more, or the final coat a little bit more pliably, is I'm going to get my hand mixer out and I'm going to beat it up with a little bit more milk just to loosen it up and get it a prettier spreading consistency so we can get that gorgeous finish that we're looking for. Okay, be back. Okay, here is where your tools come in really handy, because you now don't want to go putting your finger in your freshly frosted cake. And then we're going to just transfer this into the fridge. Okay. Okay, so I've taken out what's going to be more than enough frosting to cover the 6-inch cake, but I do want to add some milk to it so that it's a little bit more pliable and give it another whip so it's perfectly smooth and velvety for the next cake. Probably something people ask me more than anything else is how much icing for a cake. Offhand, I have to be honest with you, I don't know. I used to know when I was doing cakes a lot more frequently. Now I just go straight to the internet. There are tons of sites that will give you the measurements for how much you need to fill and frost a 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever inch layer cake times 2 layers or 4, whatever you're doing. So that's just the easiest thing. I think here I probably have about 3 cups, I'm guessing. And that's going to be more than enough. Anything we don't use here will go toward our other cake, but the bottom icing we are going to tint pink. So it's important that we get done with our white frosting first, and we know that we've got all of that taken care of. We don't need any more, so that we don't run short. Oops, right in your way again. Now let's see here. Oh, that looks beautiful. Okay, I'm going to see if I can show you this on the camera. I don't know if you'll see it or not, but you see where I've run my spatula through it? You see how velvety and smooth that is? That, my friends, is what you are looking for. It takes no effort to move that frosting around. It's actually very satisfying and it smells really good. So this frosting is now ready for our 6-inch tier when it comes out of the fridge in about 40 minutes time. Okay, so our 6-inch tier has come out of the fridge rather. It's nice and cool but not frozen, and the icing is nice and solid. So now we're going to put on our final coat, which is where we make it look all pretty and where we get those, or where we try ultimately to get those real sharp edges. So we have our icing here that we've loosened up with a little bit more milk and just beat it again with the hand mixer, and we're just going to apply it generously, and I'm going to let Ashley kind of work it down over the sides of the cake. This time we're going to try not to have so much around the bottom of the cake. Try and keep it on the cake as much as you can, and just use your turntable and kind of work it over the top and down the sides, and then when you work it onto the sides, you're going to kind of work it down and immediately rub it onto the cake so that it doesn't just kind of fall in a big glob.
Oh, okay. Oh, like that.
That's okay. Yep, just scrape her up. There you go. And it might be easier if you, let me show you here, if you work it down onto the side and then you use your spatula like that.
Oh.
Okay, so kind of work it down, over, and hold it kind of perpendicular.
Okay.
Okay? Up and down. Yep. I know it's awkward, but you get used to it when you're doing it on a
When
more...
you're doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oops.
Start
Take over.
finessing.
Here. Start finessing.
Alright.
I see how you do that. Yeah. It's a lot of icing.
It is a lot of icing, yeah.
Oh, you're just putting
You can take some off. You can always add more, right?
make it look so easy.
No, it's not easy. It gets easier. This is much easier to do your finished coat, I find, than the crumb coat. In part, I think, because the cake is not frozen anymore, it's just chilled. And also because that crumb coat has kept all the nastiness that you don't want.
get all the holes out.
Yeah. Just want to get it as pristine as we can, straight as we can. Can take quite a while to do it. And then for the top, we just kind of draw over and wipe. Okay, so Ashley's just frosting away here and she says, it seems like it's too much. No, there's always a lot of icing that goes on, but there's a lot of icing that's gonna come off of here. But we want to avoid like this kind of thing here where we see through the icing. That's why we have so much on there. And off on the sides. Try and hold it more at an angle as opposed to flat against. If you hold it slightly like so it makes a V, it's gonna come off a lot smoother. Okay, rather than just straight up and down, that's just gonna butt icing with this edge. If you hold it open.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a basic coating on here over top of our crumb coat, and now we're gonna start doing what we do to smooth it out and make it a little more level.
Now, does a hand mixer work as well as when you're making your icing?
No,
Or you
to
actually
make
need
it,
a KitchenAid?
well, you don't need a KitchenAid. People do it without KitchenAids, but I find KitchenAid is a godsend for big batches of stuff like that. And it gets pretty stiff. I mean, you were here the other night when we were making it. You could hear my mixer going, that's a pretty strong mixer.
That's a good tip.
And we're just gonna keep working at it, until it gets purty. Okay, so we've got, I'm gonna be the voiceless, faceless torso here. Ashley's gonna box up the remainder of our icing, and we can probably use that once we thicken it up a little bit on, to do our next little bit of decorating here. So this has a good solid base coat of the pink frosting, and we leveled it out. It's not too bad. I'm not as concerned with some of the lines in this one because we are going to be using a large tip to pipe this whole thing covered with ruffles. So not so concerned about whether it's as flat as the vanilla on top, but this looks pretty good. So now we are going to pop this into our refrigerator and it will be ready for us when we go to do our decorating. Stay tuned.